Tension over their sovereignty has escalated over the past few weeks, with both Argentina and the UK government ramping up the rhetoric. But what's the reaction in the Falklands themselves? Our reporter Tim Cooper has spent the past week there. Here's his assessment.
In Stanley, the Falklands capital, life goes on, quietly, contentedly. And if you ask anybody about the current heightened tension, you'll almost certainly get the same reply.
We don't feel that there are tensions here, and in fact I don't think there are.
We'll always find ways around these things, we'll always find ways of dealing with them.
It's something that I've seen and experienced probably from the moment I could speak.
It has always been there for the last 30 years, it's not a new thing.
Just back from Stanley Harbour stand the offices of the Penguin News, the weekly paper for these islands. Managing editor Lisa Watson keeps across all the international coverage of the Falklands and doesn't think it represents what the islanders are feeling.
Here in the Falklands we're just getting on with our lives, we're turning up at our jobs, and there's really not a lot of difference, maybe a little tension, but most probably that has been caused by the off-island media. But as you know, there are problems with Argentina as well, but we just have to live with them.
We'll be back on air at 4 o'clock, and then Scott will be.
At the Falkland Islands radio service, a similar attitude, with news editor Stacey Braga keen to stress that tension with Argentina is an everyday fact of life.
As for Argentina, we're used to it, we hear it all the time. Ever since the war, they've been trying their best to make life as difficult as they can for us. It's been referred to as almost an economic form of terrorism. They're doing all they can to disrupt economic activity to the Falklands.
But some islanders are worried. They feel their own voices are being drowned out in this ongoing dispute between the UK and Argentina. And the fact that the UN say they have the right to decide their own destiny, self-determination, is being overlooked. At Government House, Governor Nigel Haywood explains that the UK has been at pains to highlight this right.
Internationally, what it has pointed out has been our need to get our own message across to correct the distortions of history that Argentina's putting out there, and to emphasise to the world that this actually isn't about history, it's not about some imagined historical slight, it's about the self-determination of the Falkland Islanders and their right to choose the form of government under which they live.
In terms of the threat of invasion, without exception, everyone I've spoken to is confident in the level of protection offered by the assets stationed at Mount Pleasant Complex. What does irk community leaders is former defence chiefs talk of an inability to retake the islands should they be invaded. They feel that's got more to do with anger at defence cuts than it has the Falklands. And some are quite upset by the recent comments of former Chief of the General Staff, Mike Jackson.
Making the sort of comments that he did, and one wonders what he thinks Argentina makes of that, almost inviting them to have a go. I'm sure that's not what he intended, but you do have to see these things in the way that other people will see them sometimes.
It's almost 30 years since General Galtieri ordered Argentine forces to invade. As that anniversary draws nearer, whether the islanders like it or not, it's likely the Falklands will continue to occupy the minds of politicians and journalists across the world. Tim Cooper, Forces News, Stanley.